Before we get started, how about another round of applause for the Iwo Jima flag raising recreation, the historical unit of Southern California. And for those of you who joined us on the South Lawn about a half an hour ago, let's thank the Condor Squadron for that amazing flyover. Of course, we also want to thank the Wind Ensemble, the Santa Susana High School Ibe Road a cappella group, and for this morning's amazing musical program. So thank you. So if you would, please stand for our national anthem. The Ronald Reagan Marine Corps League Detachment 597 will parade the colors. And we're going to need this aisle right here. So we're just going to march on the colors. Retire the colors.
Oh, word. Mark. Oh, oh,
Thank you. Please be seated. So there are a handful of special guests who have helped make our Veterans Day so special today that I'd like to thank. One more time, a very special thank you to Lisa Pate and Bevan Abbey for providing today's terrific musical performances. To Bob Carroll and the Washington Artillery of New Orleans for their reenactments in our courtyard and our South Lawn. To Project Piece by Piece, who's going to be playing in the courtyard later this afternoon, made up of Ventura County and Los Angeles County high school students. Of course, we have the Naval Mobile Construction Battalion for their vehicles out in the courtyard. From Naval Base Ventura County, Stanford Parks, Navy Wounded Warrior Coordinator, and with him today, Wounded Warrior Corey Smith. I'd like to also thank Simi Valley Mayor Pro Tem Rocky Rhodes for being with us today. And then, I don't know if there's any of them in the room with us today, but a very special thank you to the Cultural Forces, Armed Forces of Ukraine, a group of Ukrainian professional artists who are now active duty soldiers and volunteers fighting in the Ukrainian war, who are here today to play for you in the courtyard later this afternoon. And of course, a very, very special thank you to all of the veterans here in our audience today. We thank you for your honor, we thank you for your bravery, we thank you for your dedication to our country and its freedom. Would you all please stand so we can salute you? It is an incredible turnout. Thank you all so much. In honor of Veterans Day in 1988, President Reagan said the following: "Today, Veterans Day, as we do every year, we take that moment to embrace the gentle heroes of Vietnam and all of our wars. We remember those who were called upon to give all a person can give, and we remember those who were prepared to make that sacrifice if it were demanded of them in the line of duty, though it never was. Most of all, we remember the devotion and gallantry with which all of them ennobled their nation as they became champions of a noble cause." He continued, "Our nation itself is testimony to the love our veterans have had for it and for us. Our liberties, our values, all for which America stands, is safe today because brave men and women have been ready to face the fire at freedom's front, and we thank God for them. In honor of these men and women, those who are currently fighting, those who are missing, those who have perished, and those who are veterans, may I please ask for a moment of silence." Thank you. And now to today's program. Our first speaker is here to shed light on the extraordinary exhibition that just opened at the Reagan Library on Friday of last week. In fact, the silent battle sculpture you passed by on your way into this auditorium is part of that exhibition. To speak more about the exhibition and its meaning is the Executive Director of the Eyes of Freedom, Kelly Jones Swenson.
Good morning and happy Veterans Day. On behalf of the team at the Eyes of Freedom, our 23 Gold Star families, and from myself, I can't tell you what a privilege and an honor it is for me to be here with you today. For me personally, when I enlisted at 17 years old in 1986, and I had my hand on a Bible and reading my oath of enlistment, there is a picture of Ronald Reagan behind me, President Ronald Reagan. And I can tell you, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And it was such an incredible honor for me to be able to serve under his leadership. So for that, I am incredibly privileged to be here. The Eyes of Freedom is an exhibit, a traveling military exhibit, that was born out of tragedies that happened in our community in 2005. A Marine Reserve Unit, Lima Company, was deployed to Iraq. And between May and August of 2005, we lost 22 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman. We lost 14 on one day. Now I should note the battalion 325, they lost 48. They lost 46 Marines and 2 Navy corpsmen. But the Columbus unit, the Marine Reserve Unit, they lost 23. And we had an artist in our community that was not military connected at all. Her name is Anita Miller. And she wanted to do something to bring some comfort to the Gold Star families and bring some comfort to our community that was grieving. And she had a vision to create life-size paintings of the fallen of Lima Company and put them in the State House in Ohio. And 2.5 years later, that's exactly what she did. 2.5 years working with the Gold Star families to create paintings that would honor the service and sacrifice of our fallen Marines and our Navy corpsmen. Now, I would tell you, we travel all over the country just honoring anyone who's answered our nation's call to serve. The sculpture that you see when you came in, that was added in 2017. The exhibit, for a lot of people, brings different emotions and different responses. Whether you're a combat veteran, whether you're a veteran, whether you are a spouse or a family member of a veteran, or if you're not military connected at all, I think everybody reacts differently to it. But we found that that exhibit has ripped off a Band-Aid for a lot of combat veterans and those that served. So we added Silent Battle. Silent Battle brings more awareness to post-traumatic stress, veteran suicide, survivor's guilt, and moral injury. That exhibit's going to be here. Both exhibits, the painting and the sculpture, will be here through December 8th. And I would encourage you, if you get the opportunity, put a dog tag on Silent Battle. I will travel all over the country with your loved one's name, a message to a service member, and to remind them that they're not alone in struggling with those hidden wounds of war. We do take this exhibit all over the country. We've been to 37 states. This marks, I think, our 400th event, bringing in some respects Memorial Day to communities. But I think all of you would agree, in the United States, every day is Veterans Day, correct? Another part of our mission is to I like to coach up the littles out there on service and sacrifice. As we know, in World War II, we had 11% of the population served. Vietnam, somewhere in the mid 4% of the population served. The last 20 years on the global war of terror, right about 1%. When I think about why I joined and why I enlisted, my grandfather was a colonel. I had uncles. My father was in Vietnam. I was a veteran-connected child. And when you think about where we went from 11% to 4.5% to now 1%, what influences our children's knowledge of service and sacrifice? What do they know about service and sacrifice? What are the schools teaching them on service and sacrifice? I would tell you this, not a lot. Sadly, not a lot. So if they're not getting it at home, where are they getting it? I've probably spoken to 5,000, 6,000 youth over the last year. I can tell you on one hand how many of them knew what a Gold Star family was. I would argue that a lot of adults don't know what a Gold Star family is, right? They don't know what to do with an American flag. Where do they take it that's been damaged and torn? Where does it go to be properly disposed of? They don't know what a Blue Star family is, someone who's actively serving. And they don't know how you earn the Purple Heart. So I have a challenge for all of you. Help me out. Help me coach up these youth on what service and sacrifice is. They're our next generation of leaders, and we need them to understand that. For your sacrifice and even your loved one's sacrifice. One thing I like to tell the youth today is, I always ask them, what do you say to a veteran when you see them? And of course, all of them know, thank you for your service. And I would tell you today, that's becoming sounding more and more cliche, like have a good day, have a good one, right? Do you know what that means? So the things I tell the youth today are, this is what you could tell them. You could say, you know what, thank you for your service, and you know what, I'll never forget. I'll never forget your service and your sacrifice. The other thing you could say is, you know what? Thank you for your service, and I'll make it worth it. Right? I'll make it worth it. When I go out there, whether I go on to college, go to a trade, work in my community, I'll make it worth it. Right? I always get worried that sometimes these kids are going to go home and say, hey, Miss Kelly was encouraging me to join the military. And quite honestly, I'm encouraging service. Service in our youth today, to do something. Whether go to a veterans home, go to a senior center, help place flags at the cemetery on Veterans Day. Do some service. So it's my hope that all of you will help me with that mission. And I thank you for all of you being here. If you don't get the opportunity to see the exhibit, you can certainly check us out online at Eyes of Freedom. We're on all the social media platforms as Eyes of Freedom. And the thank you. God bless, stay healthy, and never forget.
Thank you, Kelly. That was a tremendous message. I'm going to sort of repeat what Kelly said for just a second. Eyes of Freedom is here on display in our Air Force One pavilion through December 8th. Of course, because it's in the pavilion, there is a fee to see it. It's our regular museum charge. But for today only, the Silent Battle sculpture is sitting right outside these doors. It's free. Add a dog tag. Remember a loved one. Remember someone currently serving. And that dog tag will travel with this exhibition for as long as this exhibition travels. So now on to our keynote speaker. And to introduce him, we first need to set up the context for how we got here to this point with him here with us. So in October of 1983, there was a devastating terrorist attack on the U.S. Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. It resulted, and this is actually sort of fitting for the recreation we had here a little bit ago, it resulted in the greatest single-day loss of life for Marines since World War II's Battle of Iwo Jima. 241 U.S. service members lost their lives. Now, of course, Ronald Reagan was president at that time, and his response to the 1983 Beirut bombing underscored America's resilience and commitment to peace. His efforts to support the Lebanese people and maintain U.S. diplomatic presence in the region by instituting a multi-nation peacekeeping force are a testament to his enduring quest for stability and security. Now, serving there at the time of the terrorist attack for the multi-nation peacekeeping force was Randy Gaddo, who was there with the 24th Marine Amphibious Unit. Now, he should have been in the barracks when the terrorist attack happened, but it was Sunday morning and he had stopped for a cup of coffee in the Combat Operations Center, and that literally saved his life. He stayed in the military unit until retiring in 1996 after 20 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, where he retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. He's a lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, and the Disabled American Veterans. He's the founding vice president, board emeritus, and a lifetime member of the Beirut Veterans of America. So to tell his story, let's please welcome to the stage, Randy Gaddo.
This may be my fault, but one other organization I'm a lifetime member of is the Marine Corps League. Ah! Does anybody know what day it was yesterday? November 10th, 1775. Thank you. Hoorah. Well, thank you for that gracious introduction. Had I known I was following Ike here, I might not have accepted this invitation. I thought, anyway, I'll do the best I can. Because being invited here, I got to say, is one of the highest honors I've ever received, if not the highest honor. I appreciate it. And I thank you and the staff for inviting me, and Sarah Day for making all the arrangements, even though she's ill today. So let me turn this thing on here. They trusted me with high tech. That could be a mistake. I don't know. All right. See? There it is. All right, I had to turn it on. There we go. Veterans Day is intended for remembering all of the American veterans of all services, not just those who served in combat, but all veterans of all services. Imagine, if you will, all of the American men and women who have served in all of the wars during peacetime all through our history. I've seen numbers estimating that at around 41 million. It's a foggy number, but 41 million people, think about that. Because it's encouraging to know that so many people, so many American men and women have stood ready to defend us. The less encouraging news is that today, I'm going to piggyback on what Kelly said, it's actually about 0.4% of the American public is in active duty military uniforms, 0.4. Now, if you add in the reserves and the civilians who work with the military, it might go up to 0.6, 0.7, I don't know. But it's under 1%. Now that makes, but it's about 1,675,000 people, give or take. And that sounds like a lot, but it's actually our lowest military strength since 1980. And if this thing will go, where do I have to point this? There we go. If you can see by that chart that the military strength soared during President Reagan's 2 terms, and he clearly, I think, it's my opinion, he clearly understood what it meant to be the commander-in-chief. And I was very proud, like Kelly was, to serve under his command, very proud. But the unintended consequence of that low percentage, that 0.4 to 6%, is that the vast majority of the American public has no direct contact with any military. Unless they live near a base or have a family member who's in the military, the only information they get about the military is what they see on television or in the news media or, God forbid, in the social media. And much of that is inaccurate or skewed to fit a personal or a political agenda or social agenda. And what this can do is create a gap in the urge for the American public to see the need for a military, for a strong military. Hey, it would be a wonderful world if we didn't need a strong military force, okay? If there were no bully nations invading their neighbors, no lobbing of rockets across borders, no disputes over territory or resources, it would be utopia. It'd be paradise. But sadly, conflict has always been, I think, a part of the human experience. And considering current events, it apparently still is. The only proven method of ensuring a secure environment is a strong deterrence. And as President Reagan said, and I quote, "We know only too well that war comes not when the forces of freedom are strong. It's when they are weak that tyrants are tempted. We simply cannot learn these lessons the hard way again without risking destruction," unquote. President Reagan also said, and again I quote, "As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, we will sacrifice for it, but we will never surrender for it, now or ever," unquote. Hoorah! So I think President Reagan believed what most styles of martial arts show through a gesture. One hand is flattened, the other hand is behind it in a fist, and there's a slight bow. And what that means is, I come in peace, I want to be your friend, but if you choose conflict, then I have the strength to defy you. Every man and woman who puts on our, thank you, every man and woman who puts on our nation's uniform makes a commitment and metaphorically signs a check payable to the citizens of the United States for an amount up to and including their very lives. They do. They are ready to give that ultimate sacrifice, if needed, to protect innocent lives. They all pledge to run towards the gunfire when others are running away from it. Nobody wants to fight, but somebody has to know how, and that somebody has always been our veterans. And that is intended to be blank. I think all veterans have one or more defining moments during their time in service. Something significant that changes them and makes them who they are. Completing Marine Corps boot camp was one of them for me, in spite of, or maybe because of, the fact that I suffered a hernia in week 3. I was given the opportunity to quit. A major came in and he said, you can go home, you can have that surgery in a civilian hospital, and you'll be done with us. Or you can get it in a military hospital and then go back to a training unit. Well, I'll tell you, after 3 weeks in Marine Corps boot camp of being yelled at all the time and being pushed beyond my physical and mental limits, I was very tempting. But I felt like quitting was like failure. So I had the surgery in the Naval Hospital in San Diego, just down the road. Yes, I was a Hollywood Marine. We're all Marines. Excuse me, runny nose here. I think it must be this smoke in the air, all this smoke out here. I'm coming from the East Coast. I'm not used to all this burning. Sorry. Okay, where am I? Oh yeah, I had the surgery. So went back to medical rehabilitation platoon after that, which is affectionately known by Marines as what? MRP, but the sick, lame, and lazy platoon. And I rehabbed there for 1 whole month, and then I went back to a training unit, platoon, but I overcame the pain and earned my dress blues as the honor man of that platoon. Now, another defining moment was just after boot camp in 1976 when I was waiting for a school opening, and they put me on mess duty, where I was assigned to be in charge of the salad and dessert bar in a mess hall. Yes, the salad and dessert bar. It's quite an honor. In a mess hall that served thousands of servicemen and women every day. The mess sergeant in charge told me to keep that salad bar and dessert bar clean and stocked at all times, and I took that responsibility very seriously. But what the sergeant didn't know was that growing up as the youngest in a family of 3 boys and a girl, my first mess sergeants were my mother and sister. They taught me how to clean a kitchen. They taught me how to prepare food, long before the Marines did. But the sergeant was so impressed with my performance that he wrote me a letter of commendation and offered to make me a mess man. And I took the commendation, but I turned down the offer. But I do still have that commendation because it reminds me, it's a source of pride for me. It reminds me that no matter what the mission, doing it to the best of your ability is a reward in itself. But clearly, my most brutal defining moment occurred during my service as part of a multinational peacekeeping force, a UN peacekeeping force in Beirut, Lebanon. There at 6:20 a.m., October 23rd, 1983, I was witness to what has now been recognized as the first shot fired in the global war on terror, which we are still fighting today. On that day, 220 U.S. Marines, 18 sailors, and 3 soldiers were killed and hundreds injured when a suicide terrorist, backed by the Iranian government, drove a very large truck filled with compressed gas cylinders wrapped in military-grade explosives into a 4-story reinforced concrete building where nearly 400 U.S. servicemen slept, and detonated it. The resulting explosion crumbled the building, which was thought to be impenetrable, down to a smoldering heap about 1.5 stories high, and inside men were killed, injured, or trapped, or all of the above. Like you said, had I not stopped for a cup of coffee that morning, I would have been in there because I had a photo lab on the 3rd deck that I was going over there to work, and I decided to go back for a cup of coffee. Otherwise, I would have been in there. I would not have survived it. So I now count each day as a bonus. And every morning when I drink my 2 cups of coffee, don't tell me it's not good for me. It saved my life. The FBI later determined that that was the largest non-nuclear explosion they had ever investigated. It was the highest death toll for Marines since Iwo Jima. The blast wave from that explosion radiated out several miles at Mach 2. That's 1,500 miles per hour. It was an enormous explosion. And it all happened in a nanosecond. I got hit at point-blank range by that blast wave where I stood in a tent about a football field away. I first heard and felt a thunderous thud. And then I felt a hot rush of air on my face, and it pulled my skin back like you see when pilots are pulling G's. And I was picked up by an unseen force and thrown backwards over a pile of boxes behind me. And then in that same nanosecond, I was sucked back down to the floor face first due to the vacuum behind that blast wave. And I was knocked out and unconscious, and when I came to 2-3 minutes later, I was dizzy, dazed, and hurting. This is where my defining moment started, as it did for all the other surviving veterans that day. We ran towards the gunfire. Thinking we were under a rocket attack, I went out of my tent expecting to see a smoldering hole where the rocket had exploded. Instead, the sight I saw is one that is forever etched in my brain. I saw a giant mushroom cloud rising hundreds of feet in the air from the direction of the barracks, which we called the BLT because it housed servicemen from the battalion landing team. I ran to it, still dizzy and blurry-eyed and in shock. I noticed that all the trees had been stripped of their leaves. When I came around the corner where the barracks normally came into sight, I saw enormous chunks of concrete bristling with rebar thrown hundreds of feet from the site. I saw equipment and vehicles flattened like pancakes. Everything was covered with heavy gray concrete dust as the mushroom cloud continued to rise and small rocks and dust descended. Then I began to see human bodies, and since there's children here, I won't go into more detail, but suffice to say, I saw things that told me something terrible had happened. So I staggered back to report to my boss, Major Bob Jordan. He had been knocked out by a door flying across the room in his hut, and I told him, I said, the BLT is gone. And he looked at me kind of cross-eyed, and he said, what do you mean it's gone? I said, sir, the BLT is gone. Now, these words said on October 23rd, 1983, had the same impact as the words, the Twin Towers are gone, had on September 11, 2001. It was just impossible to imagine that this 4-story fortress with 2-foot thick concrete walls reinforced with heavy rebar was destroyed. Just impossible to imagine. Long story short, we spent the next 2 weeks in rescue and recovery efforts. The building had come down on itself, each floor pancaking down to the next, leaving sort of an A-frame opening in the middle where we could enter. So servicemen again ran into the burning building, and we tried to rescue and recover as many people as we could. Now the building was still burning. There were rounds cooking off from the fires that were inside. There were snipers shooting at us. And we didn't know if that building was going to continue to collapse or not. But we ran in, not because we were being heroes. It had nothing to do with, we weren't thinking that. We just knew our fellow servicemen needed help, and that was what had to be done. I could go on about stories about miraculous rescues and the horror of recovery. But two award-winning authors did a better job of capturing the 1982 to 84 Beirut operation, where a total, by the way, of 270 servicemen were killed, including those 241. And they all did it in the name of peace. We were there as peacekeepers. Kind of a dubious term, but the newly released book is published by Simon & Schuster, and it's entitled Targeted Beirut. Okay, there it is. It's entitled Targeted Beirut, and it is the definitive story of what happened. Jack Carr, who is a retired Navy SEAL, and some of you may have read his books, started writing when he retired as a SEAL, and everything he's written has become a bestseller, starting from the first one he did. But he's written adventure fiction to this point. This is his first nonfiction book, and he's writing it with Pulitzer Prize finalist and historical writer James Scott. And they have made this the first in a nonfiction series about terrorism in the modern age. And they identify the Beirut bombing as the seminal event leading up to the global war on terror, which, again, we still fight today. Hundreds of hours of research and hundreds of interviews with the men that were there do make this the definitive story. So I highly recommend it if you would like more information. On Veterans Day, we also cannot forget those who never came back. Right now, there are still 81,226 American veterans missing or unaccounted for. The Defense POW MIA accounting agency deploys 265 people to 12 countries in multi-purpose tasking groups of 12 people, and they go into remote areas physically looking for missing veterans, and they find them. Last year, they found more than 100 missing from Korea, World War II, and Vietnam. Those families can now have closure and celebrate their hero. Nobody wants peace in this world, and veterans, you will know this. I'm going to hopefully see some head shake. Nobody wants peace more than the people who stand ready to defend it, because they're the ones who are going to be on the line. They are the ones who are going to keep the bullies away. They're the ones who are going to keep the wolves from our door, and they always have. Veterans have always stood ready to run towards the gunfire, and many did. They, more than anybody, hope for a peaceful world. Too many Americans, all too often, take for granted the simple concept of being free. Not the people here today, not you, because I know the fact that you're here indicates you do get it. You do understand that freedom is never free. Eternal vigilance is the price we pay. But as the motto of the Beirut Veterans notes, we have many duties as American citizens, but our first duty is to remember. I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful Veterans Day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. I do want to point out, he just mentioned a book. I know you're all heading out. You're welcome to head out. There's an amazing musical portion coming in just a second you may want to stay for. Randy mentioned the book Targeted Beirut, and I want to bring it up because I read the book in July, and I reached out to the two authors and asked if they could connect us with one of the surviving Marines, and they connected me to Randy. So that's how we got him here for Veterans Day. So thank you to the authors. And it's now time for my favorite part of the program, where we recognize all of you here today. We want to recognize everyone representing the different branches of military. Our orchestra will be performing a service medley. Now, when you hear your branch's song, please stand so we can salute you. In addition, if you are a family member here representing someone who is currently serving, or perhaps someone who has passed away, please stand in their honor. So we can thank you for your sacrifice as well. So we are now going to hear the service medley.
in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, thank God thy golden success, the noble rest, and every gift divine. America,
Before we conclude today's program, I would like to remind you that the programming does continue all day until 3 p.m. Don't forget at 12:30 in the courtyard, there's the musical performance by Piece, which is the Ventura County and Los Angeles County high school students. And then at 1:30, Cultural Forces, Armed Forces of Ukraine, which is the musical performance by current soldiers from Ukraine fighting today. Thank you all for being here today. We'll conclude today's program with the playing of God Bless America. God bless all of you. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, and we're going to make it worth it.